just answering questions with WebTech. Someone asked me about something that should be a very technical subject on computers that I should know everything about or something of that nature. This is generally how people think of people who are into computers. Once I have an explanation of how something works, I stop at a certain point because I understand what I'm reading, and that's what little I can contribute. This is not going to be an exhaustive discussion. That isn't physically possible for me to do unless I do more work. Because I'm going to give you the simple warning. Android, iOS, any other operating system on any mobile device or non-mobile device. The upgrade past version 14.6 is needed to combat what we're talking about. I repeat, to prevent this thing that you read about and may have clicked on this video for seeing, you'd have to make sure that the equipment is beyond the version number 14.6 or beyond a certain year and has specifically been patched to keep these zero-click exploits from getting in. University of Toronto's Munk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy, the interdisciplinary lab called Citizens Lab, reported that Pegasus and Candiru spyware programs were used anywhere from 2015 to 2017 originally by many governments, obviously, but the Spanish government did an operation specifically against the Catalan independence movement. It's a subculture within mostly Spain of people who are activists, lawyers, computer scientists, and politicians that are in general recognized as representing a subculture or a nation all over the country, but mostly from Spain. Most of them are there. 7 out of the 10 million or so that are alive are there. And they were agitating for independence or representation. I've seen both said, and it's sometimes called an independence movement by people who are in support of it or against it. Of the 10 million people in this worldwide subculture or subgroup or race, creed, color, whatever group, 65 at least were hacked. 73 had a program called Pegasus spyware, which was authenticated or real as of 2016, but it could have been early, obviously, discovered. And 4 of them had Candiru, which is anywhere from 2014 to 2019 origin story. Again, 2019 the latest. And a few had both of them. What are these? Well, I'm going to describe the characteristics of this. Network injection attack through various methods. What that means is that you break into the computer network or cell phone network itself and inject a piece of equipment that acts as a malicious actor or a piece of software. A good example of this is a man in the middle of attack by using a Stingray cell phone system or whatever. All you have to do is attack just the part that's near the people you need to get into and find a way to, hopefully, selectively attack the individuals you're looking into. Now, I want to point out something very important about this. I could use this kind of software or write my own version of it if I was to be creative and illegally break into the telephone network or the computer network or the telecom system of the United States, which is really not one thing, it's a bunch of them connected, and do this to do things that you might find acceptable, such as finding everybody in the country that's guilty of some illegal porn communication or all of the rich people you want to punish for some reason. It's the same tool. The tool could also be used by me to hijack the network and keep this thing from working. Any tool, that's a hint, that's foreboding, that's foreshadowing, that's boss music in the distance. Any tool you create that can take over computer systems can be used against itself. In fact, that's one of the easiest ways to fix things. But anyway, this involved injecting itself into rogue cell towers or do-it-yourself stingrays where it would monitor traffic and decrypt it and actually find people's locations and have access as much as possible the same way that a phone system does. I worked at a Nextel location where we did tech support, and we were just a tech support location, but we could get into things we shouldn't have been able to get into, which was a giant security error on their part, and do things like transferring money from 100 cell phones over to 100 other people and making, stealing money and making it not untraceable, pretty close. Undoing this required the same tool. and you had to make note of it. And your keystrokes were monitored at the location I was at because people had gotten jobs there that wanted to steal stuff. See, it's the same tool. If it can do it, it can undo it. There's only a few things that can't be undone, that are one-way processes. Dedicated equipment placed at mobile operator points or just infecting an Apple computer running Safari for the view service or an equivalent utility. Basically breaking into your cell phone, breaking some other way, breaking into any equipment that's compatible, anything you paired it with or decided to tether it with, like Apple phones being tethered all the time with the computers. If you Bluetoothed it to a set of headphones, but also use the headphones for remote hookup to your stereo, if it used over the internet stereo functions or over the cable internet, it could be infected. The more things you connect, the more infections you can transfer. By the way, did you know Google wants you to share all your passwords with google.com so that they can act as your password management software? If you did that, you were an idiot. You know that, right? No, really, don't do that. Anyway, you have to upgrade iOS, Android, whatever you got, past the version listing is 14.6, which I'm sure most people did by force. This is a while ago. This isn't recent. You can also look up Forensic Methodology Report, How to Catch NSO Group's Pegasus, because NSO Group created it. The other group that created the other app, Candiru, was Candiru Group, or organization, and it's out of Israel. In a world where literally your computer and your cell phone are used as a weapon by you, it's not unheard of for people to decide that they're going to turn it against you and not let you find out. Now, except for breaking into cell towers, which, if you're not aware of it, isn't really that difficult, because you can do it from the block over where the cabling really goes, or between antennas if they're using microwave signals by just sticking an intercept in the pathway. Sometimes it's right next to a building. Sometimes it goes through a range where there's trees. You put in a tree chop or woodpecker repeater. It's a joke about the woodpecker antenna that was used by the Russians or whoever. Can you make one video talking about the forensics of the cellulars of the Catalonian policymakers made by Citizen Lab Toronto in order to demonstrate Pegasus attacks? Now, I'm not going to go into extreme detail because that's it. Once it gets into a computer or a device of any kind, any routine that can run on it, on a computer or a device that doesn't make it impossible to control the device directly, it's going to. As soon as any access is given to where you can install a program against the will of the user, it's over. Detecting that this is happening can be sometimes very simple or impossible. Sometimes the methodology for getting rid of the problem is to just completely erase the phone and or grab all the data off and then have it independently scanned by some other machine that can't get infected. This is why many labs for doing computer work will have Linux machines that are really, really locked down, Macintoshes that are really locked down, and Windows machines that are locked down that are ridiculously old. I'm running Windows 7. I've run Windows XP on systems. I have a bootable Windows XP system that I run on this thing. Because it's so fucking old, it's too stupid to run modern malware. Viruses can't run on it because they require a minimum version, which is hilarious. And yes, I have a Windows 98 and Windows 3.1 DOS boot up set that's paired on one drive to do most of these too at one time. Still do, somewhere. I really need to keep a catalog of where I hide all my boot disks. But the whole point is, all of this, all of the information about how they did it, breaks down to something weird. I'm going to cover the URLs that were used, because they all followed a similar pattern. Really crazy, suspicious-looking, clickable things that you didn't have to click. Here's how it goes. URLs, a universal resource locator, like google.com is a top-level domain. Well, the top-level domain is TLD, is actually just .com. That's the upper level. Then the name for it. Then you can have 4-level domains like docs.google.com, and then have subdirectories, which is on a server supposedly, but could also point to a completely different website. But anyway, this had 4-level subdomain as a basis. Non-standard port numbers or very large numbers. Port 80 is the default one. You can type in, you have to know how to type it in, but port 80 on any website should give you the same thing as the website. Most websites just use port 80. That just means it's the one that's addressed directly. So you could technically put in Google port 80 listing.com, meaning it's asking on the IO port or response or listener port or interrupt if somebody baps that IO point. And then the rest of it was pseudo random URI, universal resource. I forgot what, I think that's an I. It's URI. It's like an SMS message will have this, string of characters that seems very random. These are used so you can have a specific project on a website like google.com project / and then a string of numbers, or it can be used to uniquely identify you, which most email and spam files will have something / and then they'll make a dedicated page just for you, so they know you went there, because they can say, someone hit that. That means they got the email and clicked the link like a dum-dum. Let's send them some spyware. I mean, now the thing is, I'm going to state right now, everything I just said to you about from the 4-level subdomain and URLs on down, I'm deliberately not doing correctly. Not because I'm protecting you or because of any other reason other than laziness. Waiting for you to post your comments. The reason I'm doing it this way is if I explain it deeply and accurately, statistics show that 90% of you won't know what I'm talking about. So we'll do it the other way. The other way you can locate something on the internet is called an IP address. Some of you may not know what it is, but it's the literal address for the piece of equipment that's going to respond. Google can have a dozen IP addresses. They're just random strings of numbers looking things. And now they're numbers and letter combos that show the physical computer to communicate with. Google could run a bunch of computers that have nothing to do with google.com, but if you address them, they may have some suborder thing in there. And you can resolve it back and forth sometimes, but not always. But google.com / whatever, or docs.google.com or music.docs.google.com, that kind of stacking is supposed to have a meaning to it, and it's used in a way that makes it to where you can do this. But this thing, well, I have an example, and it's an archive link, and it ends in SOVCQ on archive.ph. Perfectly safe. It's after this was killed off, but it shows you the crazy long, weird-looking, special character-riddled kind of looking thing. And it's not even obfuscating it in a way that I can't decode easily. It's just convoluted unnecessarily, and that's the thing about it. This would all get masked behind a link that says bit.ly.yada yada, or it would look like it was google.com or yahoo.com, but it really went to these weird web pages. From there, it would go through and try to infect your computer by you clicking nothing, except for that link, or maybe even not even clicking the link. If you have your email set to preview external links, if you hover over them, that would inject. Or it would just preview it without you having to hover, which means it would just inject what would be seen as like a picture attachment in some SMS or message or whatever. Or on web pages, where it would try to preview what's ahead, which means it would go through the preview utility in your browser, like let's say Safari, take advantage of a defect in Safari, exploit it, and instead of it doing a derivational image by just shrinking pixels, it run a piece of code directly. As you can see, me just telling you just that basic stuff, first of all, this flies over the head of a lot of people, including people analyzing it. You can read the reports right below on their amnesty.org, because it was their project, one of many groups of people trying to fix this. Next, can I evaluate any of this? I don't need to. Once you break into the network and into the computers, I don't have anything to analyze. It just means you're broken into everything. All of it. Especially if they connected by some method just because they were paired up. You break into one computer, it breaks into every damn thing in the room. You need to disconnect that shit. But we like our convenience, so that's what really done them in. Next, read all about it if you wish to, but this is all I can contribute. If someone wants a more in-depth version, I will do it. But it's going to be something that'll even make me have to look up shit while I'm doing it, and even while I'm talking about it. I don't think we need that kind of headache right now. Anyway, this was from years ago, and it should be okay as long as you keep your cell phones updated. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. Or will it?